There's been a lot of discussion about Vanashram over the years, and there's that famous conversation with Srila Prabhupada in Mayapur in 1977, when Prabhupada was trying to impress upon his disciples the importance of Vanashram. At one point he turned to the other devotees who were there, his disciples, and he said, "So how many men are we controlling in our temples?" And the devotees looked at Prabhupada and said, "What are you talking about, Prabhupada?" Prabhupada said, "How many men do we have in our temples all around the world?" So the devotees thought for a couple of minutes, and they said, whatever it is, over 100 centers, maybe 20, 30 devotees, 40 devotees on average. Prabhupada said, "That's fine. If we want to just become a movement of brahmanas and train our devotees in the Brahminical principles, and we have just our temples and are just training Brahmins to lead society." But he says this is not the definition of a devotee. Devotee means para dukkha dukhi, means he has compassion for everyone. And Prabhupada said if we want to spread Krishna consciousness to the masses, then we have to institute this Vanashram. Vanashram has been difficult to kind of identify because, as we know, because of the degradation of Kali Yuga, it's been very difficult, in fact impossible, to identify how we can take the traditional Vanashram system and completely apply it in this Kali Yuga and this, as particular society we find ourselves in, which is now advancing very fast in the principles of Kali Yuga. But it's the absolute conviction of other devotees, as of myself, that Vanashram is a rural-based movement. It has to take place from the land. And it's also my personal observation that the whole world is heading this direction. We have a very artificial lifestyle all around the world. It's based on the oil economy. Srila Prabhupada at one point, might have been 76, 77, said that this oil-based economy, I will give it another 50 years. And it's already been over 50 years. So now the writing is on the wall. And we can see the symptoms of the breakdown of this artificial world economy in so many different ways. And because of the intense sinful activities of killing the cow, the degradation is of course increasing in Kali Yuga faster and faster and faster. It's interesting also because in our preaching, a lot of times we come across vegans, and there's even vegans who say that we shouldn't even use we shouldn't drink milk. A lot of their arguments are a little varied, but they say definitely we should not drink any milk. You guys are, responsible for this, abuse of the cow and things like that. And it's true. The cows are incredibly abused in the production of milk, and it's accelerated more and more. But it's been going on for a long time. But on a larger level, we preach to them that actually everyone is completely implicated in cow slaughter, because we're all in the Western world, at least, we're all, of course, now in India too, we're eating grains that are produced from tractors. And the proliferation of tractors means that there's no use for the bull. In fact, that's what happens, of course, in the milk industry. The bulls are immediately sent to the slaughterhouse. Now they have this artificial insemination, and they don't need them for practically any purpose. And so, the whole world, we're all responsible for this slaughter of the cow and slaughter of the bull. I'll just give you a quick little bit of my background, how I kind of got more and more into this. Is that in Los Angeles, where I live, I was doing an offering, And the offering called for Krishna to be offered some hot milk. So I cooked my sabji, prepared it for the offering. I opened the refrigerator and put my hand on the bottle of vitamin D milk to offer to Krishna, and I froze. And at that point, Krishna gave me the intelligence. I thought, what am I doing? I won't even drink this myself. How can I offer this to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is based on the torture of so many of Krishna's beloved cows? So I started doing some research. At that point, I found a Mataji who had cows up in Northern California. We started having the milk shipped down now, and for years, we've been offering all the deities milk sweets that are made, all from devotee-protected cows. And this also has given me some kind of realization that, we of course, want to maintain our temples. We're doing Sankirtan in our temples all over North America and all over the West. And as Prabhupada said, really it's the only reason to have temples in the West as bases for our Sankirtan devotees to go out. And of course, people come in also from from getting books, and they are able to associate with devotees. But we can even much more do this in a rural environment. In fact, there's a memory now that Rameshwar Prabhu has recorded. And even I studied the conversation with Prabhupada that goes even a little farther than this, where Prabhupada talks about how millions of peoples will be coming out of the city. It's a conversation in New Vrindavan, and Srila Prabhupada is preaching to the devotees, saying that all the devotees should come and live on the farm. And Rameshwar Prabhu wanted some clarification, so I said, well, Prabhupada, you mean the Grihastas? Prabhupada said, no, why not everyone? And Rameshwar Prabhu very carefully explained to Srila Prabhupada, our Grihastas are working in the cities. They have their jobs. They're maintaining their families. Wouldn't it be better to just set up their homes as preaching centers? And they can do so much preaching out of their homes that people they meet in work and things can come to their homes, and they have their jobs, they can maintain their family. Wouldn't this be better to maintain the Grihastas? And so after he mentioned the word job, Prabhupada looked at him and he said, job? He said, what is this job? He said, these jobs will very soon be finished. And then, of course, Prabhupada said that the jobless rate will be so high there will be millions of people leaving the cities. And Prabhupada says we have to have farms, and we have to be able to accommodate these people. There's a famous, well-known economist in Canada who was in charge of the biggest energy company in Canada for maybe 20 years, and he's very connected with the government and different things. He just wrote a book called Your World is about to get a lot smaller. And this is just one person, but it shows already what's in place between with intelligent people who are thinking about what's going on in terms of our dependence on artificial means. And he says that price of oil will go so high that gas prices, which now in the States are very low, it got up to over $5 a gallon. Right now I think it's about $3.50. It hovers between that and $4 a gallon. He says gas prices will go up to $7 a gallon. There's no question. It's just a matter of time. And now the gas reserves are going down and down. So he says when gas prices get up to $7 a gallon, our cities, major cities in North America anyway, and other places in the world, will become more or less obsolete. Why is that? Because the cities are created as hubs for the transportation system, and the transportation system runs on the premise that there's cheap enough oil to be able to make it economically viable. And the transportation system in North America brings us everything from everywhere else and brings it to these big super grocery department stores where everyone goes and buys things. And when you have huge cities like Los Angeles, where I live, that shouldn't even be there because there's no water there at all. They've diverted a huge river and are able to get that in there. But with every year there's been worse and worse drought. So he says that distance, think about this for a second. He says distance is money, will be the mantra of the new local economies that will be born out of the ashes of globalization. So what he's saying is that when these gas prices go up, the transportation situation that brings us everything from everywhere will be shut down. The cities will become obsolete, and people will be forced to develop local economies again. The whole Vedic paradigm is based on local economies. What's going to happen when gas prices become so high they can't run tractors? In Africa, there's many places where they still farm. Most of the places they still farm with the bull, train the bulls, and work the bulls in the fields. Their gas is up to the equivalent of about $10 to $15 per gallon. So it's not economically viable for them to have tractors. So all these things are very, very important to think about. Prabhupada was a very deep thinker. Prabhupada's whole purpose was not to develop a few temples here and there and make a few temples of bell ringers. Prabhupada wanted to infuse the whole world with Krishna consciousness. He wanted empowered, intelligent devotees who could advise the leaders of world governments. And so Prabhupada, we can see especially preaching in his later years, he was ahead of the curve. And he was telling the devotees, also in those famous discussions, he was saying farm, farm, farm. I'm not saying farm. Krishna's saying farm. Krishna is the farmacharya. And so following in the footsteps of Prabhupada, no matter what our background is, we owe it to our founder Acharya and to our movement and to the whole world to take this rural Varnashram movement very, very seriously, and listen very closely to those persons such as Bhakta Raghava Maharaj, who has deep insights in this and has started setting up these communities, and so how to develop these. And it's also I won't take too much more time, but it's very interesting that in San Jose now, north of where I've been living in California, the devotees wanted to have a cow. So it seemed so difficult to have a farm. They were thinking, why don't we just find a farmer who agrees not to kill the cow, who will take care of the cow, and then we can have a cow and have our own milk. And Bhakta Raghava Maharaj went there a few months ago and did a Go Puja ceremony there. And this farmer is a very pious man. He's only in his 50s. He's has a 100-acre organic farm, beautiful, beautiful farm. He's very much into education. He has students come up from schools, and he teaches them for free there. They can walk around the land and see how things are done. And so I was talking with him, as he has already had some association with Maharaj, and he already had the cow there that he was milking for for maybe 4 or 5 months. And he said, I can't tell you how much I feel my farm is being transformed by having this one cow on my farm. And you can see he has a daughter that's 10 years old. They couldn't stop about how much she loved the cow. And I asked him, what do you mean exactly? And he told me how scientifically the cow has 4 stomachs. And the excrement of the cow makes the land much more available for nourishing the ground and making it very fertile, so crops will grow very abundantly. He says much more so than this chicken excrement that he was using for some time. Technology has caused so many problems, and he absolutely agreed with me. And I said, the bull plows the field and harvests the grain, so it's considered our father. So then it was quiet, and we walked a little while longer together, and and then he turned to me and he said, I wonder what it would be like if we got a team of oxen here and had them plow the land and brought kids from the schools and showed them how it was done traditionally. So when he said that, I became absolutely amazed. It's like the so-called Karmi, who's, somewhat in the mode of goodness because of his agriculture. And he could understand things in a little proper perspective. And so there's many people like this all over who are just waiting for our preaching to touch them. And so the more I think we are dedicated to developing this rural Varnashram movement, that the preaching opportunities will take us much farther than we've been able to go so far. And we can actually start engaging a whole class of people that I've noticed even in the grocery stores now. They've banned plastics in Los Angeles. And even the young kids who are putting groceries in bags, they're very much into this environmental movement and protecting the earth and stuff. And so there's a huge abundance of enthusiasm amongst the youth for this whole ecological movement. And so the preaching has never been better than before.